Let's talk NASCAR at Iowa, and let's talk the points picture, the playoff standings, the fuel mileage, and a first win since the Daytona 500 for the 24 car. And we'll start off with William Byron and I think we'll go with the top 5, actually. Because Byron did quite well here. He started second, he led 141 laps out of the 350, and he managed to make the fuel mileage work, even though he was quite literally running on fumes at the end of the race. I know that fans are complaining about the amount of fuel mileage races we get. I personally enjoy them, but I guess that's because I come into this with a more European mindset. My main thing is we have nearly 40 races in the season. That, for me, is too much. But again, that's me with my European mindset. Chase Briscoe, very close, yet again. Another time he gets pole position, another time it doesn't convert into the win. At this point it was because, he didn't have the long run car. He was great over a single lap, he was great in the medium run, he was great in short runs, but when it came to the long run he didn't have it. The driver that had the most of the car in the long run was Brad Keselowski. 23.75 was the fastest lap on the day, which is 600 faster than the winner William Byron, and it was the long run car to have. But I didn't expect that Byron would be able to make it to the end, and probably if we didn't have as many cautions in stage 3, granted we had a really long run at the end, which is where Keselowski was able to get back through the field. If it was different, if there'd been more green flag running, possibly BK would have gotten the win. First win in, a couple of years, right? Now, there is the fact that if he'd done that, it would have definitely eliminated one of his teammates from playoff contention. And potentially both of them. Would have knocked both of them out of the playoff picture, but there would have been enough that they possibly could have both won their way in. Which would have been unfortunate because, Ryan Preece was 5th. And he had a good run. He was looking like he possibly could have won. But, again, just the way the things ebb and flow in this race just didn't help him out. The one person in the top 5 I haven't mentioned there was Ryan Blaney, who, he was rapid towards the end. I mean, he led 29 laps in the day as well, so he had some good runs earlier on, but that pace towards the end was almost otherworldly. It was so impressive by that 12 car. But most of the top 5 started well as well. They qualied well. When you look at it, you have 1st and 2nd, you have 5th and 6th. And then Ryan Preece casually gets the top 5 starting 33rd. There were so many different stories that you could have over the course of this race, but those drivers that made it into the top 5 deserve to be there either through sheer grit and determination, sheer pace, or a strategy masterclass. Elsewhere, you get to the top 10, you see drivers that have been relatively consistent. None of them led laps in the day, but the most recent winner to get their way in, Bubba Wallace, was 6th. Like I said, and I said this in the Brickyard event, he's had good pace, he's had good performances in recent races. He started 15th and drove his way through to 6th. Likewise, Alex Bowman has demonstrated consistency as well, and given that in the week there were lots more in the way of commentary about what they describe as the 4th Hendrick car, he managed to show up 2 of his teammates today. And there were 2 Hendrick cars in the top 10. One of them won, and the other one was Alex Bowman. He did really well with that. In 8th was Carson Hocevar, who started 7th, but got himself involved in a lot of incidents again. A while ago, I described Hocevar as NASCAR's equivalent to George Russell, and I stand by that. He's rapid. He quietly gets a lot of stuff done, but publicly ends up in the media's eye whenever he gets involved in an incident. Whether or not they're his fault is another matter altogether, but he has a bit of a rep for being involved in those incidents. Logano in 9th. Yeah, that was alright by him. He was the 2nd, 3rd Penske cars, but there was just quite a quiet race again for the 22. Likewise, quietly good, Austin Dillon. 10th place. Lots of people were pointing out his form. They were pointing out on the broadcast where they're like, look, the 3 is showing the short track pace that we know that he has. Kyle Busch had some potential over the course of the race, but again, didn't realise it. He was down in 20th. Austin Dillon was in 3rd. And then you look just outside of the top 10, and you get Ross Chastain, who quietly got some points. In 13th, you have Josh Berry, who was the... there or thereabouts when it came to running with some of the other drivers that led laps, because he sandwiches himself between the 2 other drivers that did lead laps in this race. Austin Cindric and Chase Elliott. There were some drivers that definitely had races to forget, though. Christopher Bell, spun twice. It's impressive that he got to 17th, just behind the 2 legacy cars, but he did finish where he qualified, but it's still like, it's mildly concerning. Spinning twice. Tyler Reddick got spun. AJ Allmendinger got caught up in incidents. Denny Hamlin got spun. Daniel Suarez was 25th. Kyle Larson was towards the end of the lead lap. There were already 2 other guys who he beat who finished on the lead lap, and that was Noah Gragson and Riley Herbst. Last at one point, they had to get under the bonnet. And considering that Bubba Wallace at one point was 2 laps down with tolling damage and got himself up to 6th, there was one point where you had Wallace and Larson running together. And you're like, okay, these 2 were fighting for the win last time out. And then they were fighting over for somewhere in the mid-teens. In the end, Bubba Wallace gets up to 6th. Kyle Larson is closer to 26th. He was 28th. But all of this shakes up the regular season points. William Byron is now the points leader with his 2nd win on the year. He passes Chase Elliott, who only just recently took the lead off of Byron. And 18 points, the gap between those 2 Hendrick teammates. Kyle Larson's in 3rd, but Denny Hamlin is gaining on that 3rd position. There's 6 points between the 2 of them now. They're 45 and 51 points off the lead, respectively. Christopher Bell is in 5th, 86 off the lead. Tyler Reddick is in 6th, 97 off. And then it's Blaney, Briscoe, Bowman. Bubba Wallace gets into 10th now in the regular season points. Gets ahead of Chris Buescher. And when you look at that, you go, okay, you can see where this is ebbing and flowing for different drivers. You can see the drivers who are consistent. And actually, it means that there are some drivers who deserve a lot more praise. For instance, Tyler Reddick's managed to hold on despite all of the ups and downs that he's been having this season. He's only got 1 playoff point on the year, but is still 6th in the regular season. And that could bring some playoff points if he continues to perform well there. Chase Elliott has still managed to do well despite the fact he's only won once in the year. Bubba Wallace has shown that kind of consistency to be able to get himself into the top 10 in the regular season and just get himself ahead of Chris Buescher and convincingly ahead of Joey Logano. But let's wrap up with the playoff picture. Denny Hamlin is leading the playoff grid at the moment from Kyle Larson. Then it's Christopher Bell, then it's SVG, still the 4th seed. William Byron, with his 2nd win, is still only the 5th seed in the standings. Now, regular season points may have an impact as well, but that's where it currently sits. Elliott 6th, Blaney 7th, Briscoe 8th, Bubba Wallace is in 9th, Joey Logano is in 10th. Then we have the other winners in Ross Chastain, Austin Cindric, and Josh Berry. Before we have the 3 drivers who are currently pointed in. Tyler Reddick, 122 above the cut line. Alex Bowman, 63. Chris Buescher, 23. Who's the driver on the outside looking in? It's Ryan Preece. So right now, it's looking like you might get an RFK in there. But the best way for them to secure themselves would be to win. 73 out is Kyle Busch. 87 out is Ty Gibbs. Allmendinger is 118. Then Brad Keselowski, 121. Jonathan Nemechek, 127. And then we're going to get to some of the drivers that were very much in conversation at the start of the season, but have fallen out of it. So yeah, you got Nemechek, 127. You got Hosfar, 131. Michael McDowell, 134. And Eric Jones, 138. Now, there are some drivers who could obviously just win their way in, and if they do, that will be a massive upset when it comes to the standings and when it comes to the playoff picture, especially because we do still have a couple of races left in the regular season, and of them we have Watkins Glen, which Busher could full well win. He did last year, but SVG could win again. We have Richmond. Austin Dillon's been good there before, as long as he doesn't, try to kill people. And then we have Daytona. We have a super speedway rounding out the regular season. We could have a complete underdog story there. But a lot of the people who would be those typical underdog contenders, they've already won. So, 3 races, 3 spots without any kind of locking in yet. We could see 3 different winners. We could see 16 regular season winners. Unlikely, but possible. But either way, those are my thoughts, feelings, and observations. Thank you so much for watching and joining, and until next time, and until they've gone bowling at the Glen, it's bye-bye for now.